Thom Merrilin does not get nearly as much book time as Kelsier. He's not nearly the caliber of character that Kelsier is for his series. He's not as important and all of these things. But let's go ahead and jump into this one. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot. Spoiler alert for Wheel of Time and Mistborn, of course. You know the 7 categories before I even say them, but let's do them real quick. We have origin, development, role, interest, relationships, who would win in a fight, and the tiebreaker that we always do, even though it didn't really need to be there. And we have these 2 characters that are perspective series. Let's jump into it. So origin for Thom Merrilin is something that really is what builds him to be so special right at the beginning. He's a mystery wrapped in a color patchwork cloak. He's a sweetheart, someone we love because of how well he takes care of other characters we love. And the origin behind that character is one where there's pain, there's suffering, and acceptance. There's a man who's really been broken down but found a place in his life after this horrible series of events to where he felt really okay just being a gleeman, and then more things happened. He saw kids that he wanted to take care of, and then his life kind of picks back up. But in terms of this origin where he was a lover to a queen and someone who lost a nephew to the White Tower and possibly assassinated some very powerful, influential people. It's an incredible origin, and one that I think is underappreciated even among big-time Wheel of Time fans. Next up, we have Kelsier, someone who is way more integral to his series. He is one of the main protagonists and helps shift this world in the direction of eventually Venenism, or whatever the religion that spawns off from her should be called. I'm going to call it Venenism because I like that, but you call it whatever you want to. He finds our chosen one and develops her. He is a hero. He's someone who is able to forge armies and really inspire. And the origin behind that, the tragedy that formed Kelsier, is on the same level as the one that formed Thom Merrilin, honestly. Both of these guys went through a hell of a lot. But when it comes to who they are as individuals and how much that origin influenced them, I almost have to call this category a wash, because both of them have great origins. Both of them really do push through quite a bit to get to where we meet them. They have pre-series starting stories that are fascinating, but I'm going to let my bias show through for this category and give it to Thom Merrilin, because I think he deserves it, honestly. I think it's more original. I think it provides more depth for his character overall, and I think Kelsier's was a little more standard for the character that he is. Next up, we have development. Neither one of these guys develop a whole lot. Thom Merrilin's one of the few Wheel of Time characters who doesn't develop a ton. He's just Thom Merrilin. And Kelsier, I think if there's one of these two that can really claim to develop, I think it is him by a slim margin. So for that reason, I'm pretty much going to go ahead and give him the point without much discussion, because Thom is just Thom. I mean, he's an old man. He's not going to shift much. And Kelsier, he has these layers that become more transparent to his character, to his personality. And while Thom certainly has the mystery as well, it's not really much of a development for him. That mystery just is him. The distinction there might be kind of strange, but essentially Thom's development through the unraveling of his mysteries makes what's already there more understood. Kelsier's unraveling of his mystery really shifts and changes how you understand him. It's not just a clarification, it's a recontextualization in a very much more drastic way, I think. He's not just this foolproof Mary Sue type hero. He's someone who's motivated by rage and anger, and someone who has a lot more in common with a typical villain than a hero, and that becomes more and more clear through his development. Whereas Thom is just, his development is just kind of a slow unraveling of a series of mysteries, which I love and I think it's great, but I think Kelsier's lends more to the overall story in terms of interest and his character in terms of how deep they really go. Now we have the role they play in the world they are in. Drastically different executions of essentially the same roles. They're both protectorates of chosen ones. One of them much more hands-on, one from the shadows kind of doing more subtle things. I kind of like the more subtle one personally, and if I was going to let my bias decide this point, I would go ahead and give it to Thom here, because I think it's a more fun way to kind of be influencing the series. The little things you can pick up on where they never directly tell you, but upon a reread, you're like, oh, Thom probably set that up. Things like that. Kelsier's is much more integral to his series. It's executed at a much grander scale, and the role he plays of kind of being the false chosen one at first and the mentor as well, the similarity to Thom being the mentor role, really lends a lot to who he is, especially the false protagonist we're set up with, the one we think could be the chosen one and then falls, and his death, that role of his death, that is an essential role to who he is. This falling of a hero really raises the stakes and lends the entire Mistborn series upping its game quite a bit and really becoming quintessential to the development of what the stakes of this world will be. So I'm going to go ahead and give this point as well to Kelsier. Now we have interest for the reader. This really comes down to personal preference here, because I don't think the character of Kelsier is written as well as Thom's character is, but what he's doing is far more interesting in terms of like the context of the series. So if I was going to give it for purely execution of how interesting they are as a character, I would give it to Thom. But interest in terms of what they're doing, its influence on what's happening, and how directly they influence the plot, Kelsier is leaps and bounds beyond Thom. So with these two things really being the struggling factors for who I give the points to, there's Thom, who's a little bit better in terms of how he's written and the depth of that character, and then there is Kelsier, who is so much more interesting in his actions and his influence and things like that. So for that reason, Kelsier gets this point as well. Relationships. For me, Thom takes the cake, no problem at all with this one. Kelsier's relationships are not really integral to who he is. Every important relationship this guy had, except for the one with Vin, happened in the past, and that's part of the tragedy. Him and his friends now, they're never really shown to be great friends. We're told that a whole bunch, but there's never really friend moments that elevate them to be a Blackguard or a, Malazan level of relationship there. It's more of a subtle back burner kind of thing. Meanwhile, Thom's relationships have tragic events throughout the series, and his love of these boys and his mentoring and caretaking of them is far beyond what I would give Kelsier, especially with the love interest that is taken from him in these series. That is something that hurt a lot for, I think, every reader. Seeing this character who it felt like he was about to retire and maybe kind of leave the series be dragged back in such a horrendously painful way. I think for that reason alone, if it was just that, I would give Thom the point. Who would win in a fight? Let's not even talk about that. Kelsier would annihilate him, and he'd kill an old man, which he probably would do. He would do that. And now we have who would do better in the other's world. Anytime you bring a male magic user into the Wheel of Time in the era that Wheel of Time starts in, that's dangerous. They are a huge target immediately, and there's no way they'll be able to talk an Aes Sedai into believing that they are not a male channeler. Assuming that Kelsier knows well enough to kind of keep it on the DL, I think he'd do fairly well, especially if he'd made more of a subtle use of his magic to just win fights in lesser ways after knowing that he would be so persecuted. Thom would be a great bard or a gleeman equivalent in the Mistborn world, but could quickly get killed because there are people leaps and bounds more powerful than him, and an evil entity he does not understand. So he could very easily die. I don't think he would. He's really smart and capable, but Kelsier could become a real force to be reckoned with as the series progresses and men who can channel become more accepted, and he has a place where he can kind of go and chill out. I think he might end up in the Black Tower. That seems like a reasonable progression for him. But that's just my opinion, and the win here goes to Kelsier.
I will remember you. Will you remember?
Yes, this video hurt to do. It hurt to do a lot. This is one of the few videos where I'm really confident in every point that I gave, to the point where this is the winner. I'm 99% sure I'll stake my reputation on it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your week. I am sorry there was no videos over the weekend. Work just got way more stressful, and the weekend was very nice and relaxing, but don't expect multiple video days or anything this week. Just kind of a one at a time at best, because things are going to be picking up the pace at work for me. So have a good one, y'all. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support that channel and ease up my stress levels a little bit. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.